The biggest issue I see with a lot of traders is taking L's. Now, what I teach in my strategy, which you'll eventually learn in later videos, has a pretty decent win rate if you use it right and you understand the draw and liquidity. So, what does this mean? Well, if you're like me and you're a perfectionist, in school, I'd always try to get 100, and that's what I just try to do. If I got anything wrong, I'd be pretty mad. Okay, maybe some of you guys weren't. Maybe some of you guys tried just passing barely. Maybe some of you guys were perfectionists like me. But here's the issue. The issue with my strategy is my strategy, which I will eventually teach, is a pretty high win rate strategy. So you might take 4 or 5 wins in a row. You might be up $1,000. Let's say you take 5 $200 wins in a row. So that equals $1,000. And all of a sudden you take a long setup right here, and then your stop loss is here. That's actually a bad example. Let's say you take a long here, and your stop loss here. Let's say you try it long here because you're like, oh, there's a fair value gap down here. I think we're gonna bounce. So let's say you try along here. What's gonna happen is you just took 5 losses or 5 wins in a row. What's gonna happen is you're up 1,000. You just took 5 wins in a row because, again, depending on your strategy or depending on ICT, your win rate's probably not that terrible. And honestly, if your win rate's below 40% and you're targeting just 2 to 1 or 1 to 1, you probably need to rethink your strategy. I'm going to be honest, or you just need to get better because that's not acceptable. 50% or higher using ICT at 1 to 1 R, 2 to 1 R is definitely where you want to be. Just to be honest. Anyways, you just took five $200 wins in a row, and all of a sudden you take a loss here, but you're like, oh wait, I just won so much, I can't take a loss. I still think we're gonna bounce. I maybe think we're gonna hit this liquidity and then bounce. So what do? You average down here, and then we just dump and you blow your account by the time we get down here. That is definitely the biggest problem I see. And it's definitely not a trading thing. It's not your strategy. It's your ego. You just took 5 wins in a row. You think you can't lose, and it's just an ego thing. It happened to me so much. So what is one way to combat this? Well, I did a challenge where I actually tried taking really bad trades, okay? And you're probably like, oh, if I take bad trades, they're just all going to be wins. So what I did is I kind of used my strategy and I kind of tried fading it. And I tried losing on purpose. And I kind of did that for a couple weeks straight. And it made me realize that, like, I can lose. And I think one thing that helps is when I lost those couple weeks, okay, and this was not with demo money. I did this with real money just because I knew it would hurt more. What helped me realize was this. When I took a loss, it made me realize that you can take a loss, and if it hits your stop loss but goes lower, you're kind of happy. Now let me explain why. So when I did the challenge and I let's say longed here, let's say I figured we are going to go to sell side here, okay? This is sell side liquidity. All right. And let's say I was like, okay, well, I know we're going to go to sell side here. I'm going to take a long to take the loss on purpose. And I'm going to put my stop loss at sell side because you ideally want your stop below that low. When you physically see yourself place a stop loss and it hits that stop loss and you get out and it goes way lower, you're going to be like, wow, that was a really good stop loss. I would love to do that more because you're saving yourself tons of money. I think just knowing that and understanding that is going to help you so much. Yes, there will be an occasional long where, let's say along here. Yes, there will be an occasional long where you will get stopped out, let's say here, and the play will work after. But that's typically not going to happen very much, okay? Like, you have to understand that this is almost never going to happen. But when it does, you have to not worry about it. The majority of the time, what's going to happen is if you take a loss, depending on what strategy you're using, it's probably going to keep dumping further or it's probably going to keep pumping further. Okay, that's the beauty of a stop loss. And I think, and people with big egos won't know that unless they take enough losses to see, okay, well, here's my strategy. Let's say my strategy is the 2022 model. Okay, let's say it's the ICT 2022 model where we're looking for market structure shift here, and then we're looking for like a fair value gap to get in here. So let's say this is my strategy. Well, the typical stop loss for something like this would be below the low. So let's say I get on the retrace of the fair value gap, I put my stop below the low, and that's your typical stop loss. Most times, this fails and it hits your stop loss, it will continue to dump and go that way most times. And I think you need to see that to understand why placing a stop loss is good. And I think that's going to help deflate your ego a little bit, because you're like, wow, like, I think I should get out here. I'm not going to average down because majority of the time we will keep dumping. Now, if that's not the case and the majority of the time we hit your stop and then go up, you're probably doing something wrong. You're probably not waiting for like a liquidity sweep or something. You need to maybe change your strategy a little bit. But I think to be able to take a loss, you need to take the loss and see, okay, I'm going to take this loss. I'm going to get out. And again, majority of the time, if your strategy is good, we will just keep going in the opposite direction. You have to understand that, okay? So that's just really, really important to understand. And you're not going to learn that unless you take enough losses to see that signature in price. Why am I so good at my strategy? I'm so good at my strategy because I've seen it play out millions of times. I know when the stop out. I know what's going to happen. I know when it's probably going to be a loss, so maybe I'll get out early. I know the price action that starts to occur when it's going to be a loss, and that's just why I'm so good at it. And you need to be able to see what happens in a loss for your specific strategy to know that stopping out's better than trying to average down. Because again, if your strategy is truly a high win rate and you take $500, $200 wins in a row, 1 or 2 losses is not going to do much. Okay, I'm telling you, I used to be like, okay, I have to have 100% win rate, I have to average down. But I'm telling you, 1 or 2 losses will not do much. Okay, so it's just so important to understand that, and you'll not be profitable unless you understand that. Okay, so I think what you should do is I would try taking some losses on purpose with your strategy and see what happens when your strategy stops out. See what happens when we stop out. Does it keep going in the opposite direction, or does it reverse right after you stop out? Chances are it's probably going to keep going lower or higher, and you're probably going to save yourself a lot of money that you could potentially lose. And your brain needs to create that connection in order to understand that. That's the only way you're going to be profitable, instead of being like, oh, I got 6 wins in a row, I have to win this next one. If I don't, I'm going to revenge trade. And you have to do that. Another thing is definitely if you ever take 2 losses in a session, like let's say you take 2 losses in New York session, I would typically just stop, because your mindset's probably not going to be very healthy. Even for me, it's hard because it's like, dude, I'm down 400. I just took 2 losing trades, and it definitely does not help your confidence. So I would probably just be done for that session. Go for a walk, clear your mind, whatever you want to do. If you live somewhere nice, going for a walk in the sun definitely helps a lot. In the winter, it's probably going to be different, but it just helps clear your mind. The sun, being in the sun helps clear your mind. It's hard without the sun for sure. You really can't clear your mind inside, in my opinion. I mean, maybe some people can, but being just in the fresh air just helps a lot. But, you know, try that challenge. I know it might sound stupid. Maybe try it on a prop firm account. Again, you could maybe buy a prop firm account. Use code Dodgy. There should be an 80% off sale for Apex, link in the description. But if you use code Dodgy for that, buy an account and try to lose on purpose. Take 5 losses, see what happens. I saw this Instagram video the other day, and this guy was actually doing this Instagram video, and it's a series, and it's called rejection therapy. And basically what he does is he goes to these different shops and these different places and asks some outrageous question like, can I get this food for free instead of paying for it? And his goal is to get rejected. So why does it help? Because he builds confidence, and like he understands that, okay, I've gotten rejected so much and nothing bad ever happens, and he's building his confidence to where, like, if he gets rejected for anything, he doesn't really care, because it's not like anything happens. And same thing with a trade. When you take a $200 loss, it's not like anything happens. I mean, maybe if you're starting your own signal service and you take a loss, people are going to hate on you, but that's their problem, and they have to understand that you can't have a 100% win rate too. They're just not meant to be traders. And I thought rejection therapy, I thought that was like a really good idea what he was doing. So that would definitely be one way to combat it. But other than that, taking a loss and deflating your ego definitely took me a while. I'm not going to lie. It's not like this is a one-step fix, but it's definitely time as well. So that's going to be the end of this video. Just take a loss, learn how to take a loss, stop averaging down. If your strategy is good enough, all I will say is we'll probably not reverse right after you take a loss. We'll probably keep going in the same direction, and you'll probably save yourself money. Yeah, maybe there might be 20% of the time reverse, but that's typically not going to happen if your strategy is good enough. And if that usually does happen, well, then your strategy is probably not good enough. So that is it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.